I hired a private investigator to follow myself. The report made me question everything. There's an envelope on my desk right now. It's been sitting there for 3 days. I can't open it. Not because I'm afraid of what's inside. I already know what's inside. I paid for it. I hired a private investigator to follow me for 30 days. To watch my every move, every conversation, every place I visited. And when the report arrived, when I read those pages, I realized something terrifying. I didn't recognize the person described there. That wasn't me. Or at least it wasn't who I thought I was. And now, staring at this envelope, I ask myself, do we ever really know who we are? Or are we just playing a character that never existed? Let me tell you how this all started. 6 months ago, I woke up on a Saturday morning with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't sadness. It was emptiness. An emptiness so deep it felt like my body had become hollow from the inside. I stared at my bedroom ceiling, that plain white ceiling I'd been looking at every day for 5 years, and I thought, who am I? I know it sounds dramatic, but it wasn't a philosophical thought. It was literal. I couldn't remember who I was. I couldn't remember what I liked to do, what made me happy, what made me feel alive. I was 34 years old, and I felt like I had been sleepwalking through my entire existence. I got out of bed and walked to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked, and the face staring back at me felt like a stranger's face. The lines around my eyes, the gray hair starting to appear on my temples, the tired expression that seemed permanently carved into my features. I touched my face, like I was trying to confirm this person was real, and I whispered out loud, "Do I even know you?" That's when it started, the spiral. I went to work on Monday like nothing had happened. I sat at my desk in that fluorescent-lit office, surrounded by the same people I'd worked with for years, and I realized I didn't know any of them. Not really. Sure, I knew their names. I knew what projects they were working on. I knew Sarah from accounting was getting married in the fall. I knew Tom from IT had a son who played baseball. But I didn't know them. And worse, they didn't know me. And the most disturbing part? I wasn't sure there was anything to know. I started paying attention to myself. Really paying attention. Like I was studying a specimen under a microscope. I watched how I interacted with people. I listened to the words that came out of my mouth. I noticed my routines, my habits, my patterns. And the more I watched, the more disconnected I felt. It was like watching someone else live my life. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every conversation felt scripted. Every decision felt automatic, like I was following an instruction manual I didn't remember writing. At night, I would lie in bed and try to remember moments when I felt truly myself. Moments when I wasn't performing or pretending or going through the motions. And I couldn't find any. Not a single one. My entire life felt like a performance I'd been giving for an audience I couldn't see. I started keeping a journal. I thought maybe if I wrote down my thoughts and feelings, I could find some core of authenticity buried underneath all the noise. But when I read back what I'd written, it felt fake. Every word felt like something I thought I should feel, not something I actually felt. I wrote things like, I feel grateful for my job and I appreciate my friends and I'm working on being more present. But none of it felt true. It felt like I was writing a character profile for someone I was supposed to be. 3 weeks into this crisis, I went to see a therapist. Her name was Dr. Chen, and her office smelled like lavender and old books. I sat on her brown leather couch and tried to explain what was happening to me. I told her about the emptiness, about feeling like a stranger to myself, about not knowing who I really was underneath all the roles I played: employee, son, friend, colleague. She listened carefully, her pen moving across her notepad in slow, deliberate strokes. When I finished, she looked up at me and asked, "When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because you should. Not because it was expected, but because something inside you genuinely desired it." I sat there for a full minute, searching my memory, and I couldn't think of a single thing. Not one. Every choice I'd made, every action I'd taken, every word I'd spoken, it all came from some external place. Some idea of who I was supposed to be, some image I was trying to maintain, some expectation I was trying to meet. But nowhere in that equation was me. The real me. If such a thing even existed. Dr. Chin gave me homework. She told me to spend the next week trying to catch myself in moments of authenticity. Moments where I felt truly present, truly myself, truly connected to what I was doing. She said to write them down, to study them, to see if I could find a pattern. I tried. I really did. I went through my days like a detective, watching for clues about who I really was. But every moment I examined fell apart under scrutiny. Was I laughing at that joke because I actually thought it was funny, or because everyone else was laughing? Did I order that coffee because I wanted it, or because it's what I always ordered? Did I say yes to that dinner invitation because I wanted to go, or because I felt obligated? Every single action, when I looked closely enough, revealed itself to be a performance, a habit, a reflex, but never a choice. Never something that came from some authentic core of self. By the end of that week, I had written nothing in my journal. There were no moments of authenticity to record. And that's when the fear really set in. Because if there was no authentic self underneath all these performances, then what was I? Just a collection of learned behaviors? A bundle of reflexes and habits and responses programmed by society and circumstance? Was there even a me in there at all? I went back to Dr. Chen and told her I'd failed the assignment. She didn't seem surprised. She leaned forward in her chair and said something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about since. Maybe the question isn't who you are. Maybe the question is who you've been pretending not to be. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at that white ceiling again, and her words echoed in my mind. Who have I been pretending not to be? What parts of myself had I buried or hidden or denied? What desires had I suppressed? What dreams had I abandoned? What version of me was locked away somewhere, waiting to be acknowledged? And that's when I had the idea. It came to me at 3 a.m, in that strange state between waking and sleeping where the most absurd thoughts seem perfectly logical. If I couldn't trust my own perception of myself, if I couldn't see myself clearly from the inside, then maybe I needed to see myself from the outside. Maybe I needed an objective observer. Someone who could watch me without the distortion of my own biases and fears and self-deceptions. Someone who could tell me who I really was. So I decided to hire a private investigator, to follow myself, to document my life like I was a subject in a study, to create a profile of who I actually was, based not on who I thought I was or who I wanted to be, but on what I actually did, how I actually spent my time, who I actually talked to, where I actually went. The truth of my existence, captured by someone with no investment in maintaining my illusions. It took me 2 weeks to find the right person. I interviewed 3 different investigators, and they all looked at me like I was insane. The first one, A middle-aged man with a thick Boston accent and coffee stains on his shirt actually laughed when I explained what I wanted. He said, "Kid, you need a therapist, not a PI." The second one, a woman in her 50s who wore too much perfume, told me it was unethical and she wouldn't do it. But the third one was different. His name was Marcus Webb. He was in his early 40s, with graying hair and the kind of face that you forget the moment you stop looking at it, which he later told me was exactly what made him good at his job. He sat across from me in a coffee shop in downtown Boston, listened to my request without interrupting, and then said, "I'll do it. But I need you to understand something first. You're going to see things about yourself you won't like. Everyone does. The person we are in our minds is always different from the person we are in the world. Sometimes dramatically different. Are you prepared for that?" I told him I was. I wasn't, but I told him I was. We worked out the details. He would follow me for 30 days. Not every minute. That would be impossible and prohibitively expensive, but a representative sample. Different days of the week. Different times of day. Random intervals, so I wouldn't be able to predict when I was being observed. He would document where I went, who I talked to, what I did, how long I spent doing it. He would note patterns, habits, routines. He would create a profile of my life based purely on observation. And at the end of 30 days, he would compile it all into a report and give it to me. I paid him half up front, $5,000. It was more than I could afford, but I didn't care. I needed this. I needed to know who I really was, especially if it was someone I didn't want to be. The surveillance started on a Monday. I woke up that morning knowing that somewhere out there, Marcus Webb might be watching me. And the strange thing was, I didn't change my behavior. I thought I would. I thought knowing I was being observed would make me perform differently, try to be my best self or something. But it didn't. Because I realized that I had no idea what my best self even looked like. And besides, the whole point was to capture the truth. So I just lived. I went about my days exactly as I always had. Wake up, shower, coffee, work, lunch, more work, home, dinner, TV, sleep, repeat. But even though my routine didn't change, my awareness of it did. Knowing that someone was documenting my life made me see it differently. Made me notice things I usually glossed over. Like how I took the same route to work every single day, even though there were faster options. Like how I ate lunch alone at my desk exactly 4 days out of 5. Like how I checked my phone 47 times in a single evening without really looking at anything. Like how I said I'm fine to every person who asked how I was, including my own mother. 2 weeks into the surveillance, something happened that I still can't explain. I was walking home from work, taking my usual route down Boylston Street, when I suddenly had the overwhelming urge to turn left instead of right. Not for any reason. Not because there was something I needed to do or see. Just an impulse. A desire that came from somewhere deep inside me that I didn't recognize. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I followed it. I turned left. I walked down a street I'd never been on before, past shops I'd never noticed, through a small park I didn't know existed. And I felt something I hadn't felt in so long I'd forgotten what it was called. Curiosity. Not about anything in particular. Just openness. A willingness to see what happened next. It only lasted maybe 15 minutes before the feeling faded, and I found my way back to my usual route. But in those 15 minutes, I felt like I caught a glimpse of someone else inside me. Someone who wasn't just going through the motions. Someone who wanted things. Someone who was still alive in there. When I got home that night, I wondered if Marcus had seen that moment. If he documented that tiny deviation from my normal pattern, and what he'd made of it. Was it significant? Or was it just random? Was it a clue to who I really was? Or just noise? I didn't tell Dr. Chun about hiring the investigator. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I knew she'd try to talk me out of it. Maybe because I was embarrassed. Or maybe because I wanted to keep this one thing private, even though the whole point was to be observed. I kept going to my sessions, kept trying to answer her questions about identity and authenticity and desire, but I held this secret close. This experiment I was conducting on myself. 3.5 weeks into the surveillance, I had a moment of panic. I was sitting at my desk at work, staring at a spreadsheet that meant nothing to me, when I suddenly thought, what if the report shows I'm exactly who I think I am? What if there's no hidden depth, no secret self, no buried authenticity? What if I'm just this? Boring. Empty. Going through the motions. What if the investigation reveals that there's nothing to reveal? That thought terrified me more than the possibility of discovering I was someone I didn't like. Because at least being someone I didn't like meant being someone. Being nothing meant nothing. It meant I'd spent 34 years on this earth and never actually existed. Never made a mark. Never been real. I almost called Marcus that day to cancel the whole thing. I had his number in my phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. But I didn't press it, because even though I was terrified of what the report might say, I was more terrified of never knowing, of spending the rest of my life wondering, of dying someday without ever understanding who I'd been. The 30 days ended on a Thursday. Marcus called me that evening and said the report was ready. We arranged to meet the next day at the same coffee shop where we'd first discussed the job. I barely slept that night. I kept imagining what the report might say, what patterns Marcus had noticed, what version of me existed in those pages. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't imagine going through the motions of a normal day knowing that somewhere in Boston, there was a document that held the truth about my life. I sat in my apartment, drinking coffee and staring at the clock, watching the minutes crawl toward our meeting time. I got to the coffee shop 20 minutes early. Marcus was already there, sitting at a corner table with a manila envelope in front of him. The envelope. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I sat down across from him, and he pushed the envelope toward me without saying anything. I stared at it. My name was written on the front in black marker. Nothing else. Just my name. And underneath it, everything I was. Or everything I wasn't. I reached out and touched the envelope, and my hand was shaking. Marcus said, "Before you open it, I need to tell you something. In 20 years of doing this job, I've never had a case like this one. I've followed cheating spouses. I've documented insurance fraud. I've tracked down missing persons. But I've never followed someone at their own request. And the things I saw..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The person in that report, they're not who you think they are. But they're also exactly who you think they are. Does that make sense?" It didn't. I told him it didn't. He nodded. "It will. When you read it." I picked up the envelope. It was heavier than I expected. I turned it over in my hands, looking for the courage to open it. And then Marcus said something that made me freeze. "There's someone you've been meeting. Every Tuesday afternoon. For the past 7 months. Same place, same time. You never told me about them when we discussed your routine. And based on what I observed, I don't think you want anyone to know about these meetings. Do you?" My blood went cold. Tuesday afternoons. I worked from home on Tuesdays. I always worked from home on Tuesdays. Didn't I? I tried to remember, tried to trace back through my memories, but there was nothing there, just blank spaces, empty hours that I couldn't account for. I don't know what you're talking about, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I felt something shift inside me. Some locked door in my mind starting to crack open. Marcus leaned back in his chair and studied my face. You really don't remember? Remember what? Read the report, he said. It's all in there. Everything you've been doing when you think no one's watching. Everything you've been hiding, even from yourself. I opened the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out the report. It was 43 pages long, typed, single-spaced, with timestamps and locations and photographs. So many photographs. I flipped through them quickly, catching glimpses of myself in different locations, different moments, different expressions. And then I stopped on one image. A photograph of me sitting in what looked like a church basement, surrounded by other people, all of us sitting in folding chairs arranged in a circle. My mouth was open mid-sentence, and the expression on my face was, I don't know how to describe it. It was pain. Raw, unfiltered pain. The kind of pain I didn't think I was capable of feeling. What is this? I whispered. Keep reading, Marcus said. I found the section of the report that corresponded to the photograph. The timestamp said Tuesday, 2:47 p.m. The location was St. Michael's Church on Cambridge Street. And underneath, in Marcus's clean, clinical prose, subject arrived at location at 2:30 p.m. Entered through side door. Proceeded to basement level. Joined group of approximately 12 individuals seated in circle formation. Meeting appeared to be support group of some kind. Subject spoke for approximately 8 minutes. Could not hear full content from observation point, but subject displayed significant emotional distress. Other group members offered verbal support. Subject remained in meeting until 4:15 p.m. Left building alone. Walked 6 blocks before entering coffee shop. Sat alone for 32 minutes. Left coffee shop and returned home. Evening routine followed normal pattern. I read the paragraph 3 times, trying to make it make sense. But it didn't make sense. I didn't go to support groups. I didn't go to churches. And then suddenly, like water breaking through a dam, the memory came flooding back. I did go there. Every Tuesday. For 7 months. How had I forgotten? How had I completely erased these meetings from my conscious mind? I remembered now. The smell of old coffee and lemony cleaning products. The circle of metal folding chairs that squeaked when you shifted your weight. The faces of the other people there. Helen, who'd lost her husband to cancer. Robert, who couldn't hold down a job. Maria, whose daughter wouldn't speak to her. And me, sitting in that circle, talking about the emptiness. About feeling like a ghost in my own life. About not knowing who I was anymore. I'd been going there since December. 8 months ago. I'd found the group online, a support group for people experiencing what they called identity crisis or existential depression. And every Tuesday afternoon, I'd told my coworkers I was working from home, and instead I'd gone to that church basement and sat with those strangers and spoken truths I couldn't speak anywhere else. And somehow, I'd completely forgotten. Not deliberately, not consciously, but my mind had just erased it, filed it away somewhere I couldn't access, created a false memory of working from home to fill in the gaps. Why? Why would my brain do that? I looked up at Marcus. There's more, isn't there? More things I don't remember? He didn't answer directly, just said, keep reading. I turned the page, and what I found there made everything else disappear. I turned the page, and what I found there made everything else disappear. There was a photograph of me standing outside an apartment building I didn't recognize. It was in a neighborhood I'd never been to, or at least never consciously remembered being in. The timestamp said Wednesday, 11:47 p.m. Almost midnight. I was standing on the sidewalk, looking up at a third-floor window where a light was on. In the photograph, my posture was different. My shoulders were relaxed in a way they never were during the day. My hands were in my pockets, and there was something about the way I was standing there, patient, expectant, almost peaceful, that looked completely foreign to me. I scanned the text below the image. Subject left residence at 11:23 p.m. Drove to address on Elm Street in Somerville. Parked vehicle 2 blocks away. Walked to building at 447 Elm Street. Stood outside for approximately 40 minutes, observing third-floor window. At 12:08 a.m., light in window turned off. Subject remained for an additional 6 minutes, then returned to vehicle and drove home. This pattern repeated on 4 separate occasions during surveillance period, always late Wednesday nights, always the same building, always the same window. My hands went numb. The report slipped slightly in my grip, and I had to clutch it tighter to keep from dropping it. I looked at Marcus, and my voice came out hoarse. "Who lives there?" "I don't know," he said. "I wasn't hired to investigate them. Only you. But clearly, whoever they are, they matter to you. A lot." I stared at the photograph again, searching my memory for any explanation. Wednesday nights. Late Wednesday nights. What did I do on Wednesday nights? I tried to reconstruct my routine. I went to work. I came home. I made dinner, usually something simple, pasta or a sandwich. I watched TV. I went to bed around 11. That was my Wednesday routine. Every Wednesday. Except, apparently it wasn't. Because apparently, on some Wednesdays, I drove across the city to stand outside a stranger's apartment and watch their window until they turned off their light. And I had no memory of it. None at all. How is this possible? I asked, more to myself than to Marcus. How can I be doing things and not remember them? Marcus folded his hands on the table. The mind is complicated. We lie to ourselves more than we lie to anyone else. Sometimes we hide things from our conscious awareness because they're too painful, too confusing, or too dangerous to acknowledge. Other times, he paused. Other times we hide things because they're too true, because acknowledging them would mean having to change everything. I turned the page again, my heart hammering. The next section documented my lunch breaks. Apparently, on the days when I didn't eat at my desk, which, according to Marcus's notes, was actually more often than I'd told him initially, I went to the same diner in Cambridge, a place called Rosie's. I'd been going there at least twice a week for the past 6 months. And every time I went, I sat at the same booth in the back corner, ordered the same thing, black coffee and a tuna melt, and spent exactly 45 minutes there. But here's what made my stomach drop: I never ate the food. Marcus had multiple photographs documenting this. In every single one, the sandwich sat untouched on the plate while I stared out the window or down at my hands, or at nothing at all. Sometimes I wrote in a small notebook that I apparently carried with me, but had no memory of owning. Sometimes I just sat there, perfectly still, like I was waiting for something that never came. The report noted, subject's behavior at this location suggests a ritual or compulsion rather than a meal break. The food appears to be a pretext for occupying the space. Notable, subject always requests the same booth. On 2 occasions when booth was occupied, subject left immediately without ordering. This location appears to hold significant psychological importance. I closed my eyes and tried to force the memories to surface. Rosie's Diner. Cambridge. Had I been there? The name meant nothing to me. But as I sat there in that coffee shop, holding that report, something flickered at the edge of my consciousness. Not a memory exactly, more like an echo of a feeling. Sadness. Overwhelming sadness. The kind that makes your chest ache and your throat close up. And the smell of coffee. Strong, burnt coffee. I need to go there, I said suddenly. To that diner. Right now. Marcus checked his watch. It's 10:30 in the morning. You want to go now? Yes. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. I'll drive you. We didn't talk during the drive. I sat in the passenger seat of his unremarkable gray sedan, clutching the report like it was a lifeline, watching the streets of Boston slide past the window. My mind was spinning, trying to piece together a puzzle I didn't even know existed. Who was I? Not the version I presented at work, clearly. Not the simple routine I'd described to Dr. Chen. I was someone who went to support groups and didn't remember. Someone who stood outside strangers' apartments in the middle of the night. Someone who paid for food I never ate while sitting in the same booth week after week. What else didn't I know about myself? What other secrets was I keeping from my own conscious mind? We pulled up outside Rosie's Diner at 11:15. It was a small place, wedged between a laundromat and a used bookstore, with a faded red awning and windows that needed cleaning. The kind of place that's been there for decades and will probably be there for decades more, completely unchanged. I stared at it through the car window, and something in my chest tightened. You remember it? Marcus asked. No. But I feel it. I got out of the car and walked to the door. My legs felt strange, like they were following a path they knew, but my brain didn't. I pushed open the door, and a bell chimed above my head. The smell hit me immediately, coffee and grease and something sweet, maybe maple syrup. And with that smell came a wave of emotion so powerful it nearly knocked me over. Grief. Pure, undiluted grief. The diner was mostly empty. A few people sat at the counter. An elderly couple occupied a booth near the front. And in the back corner, my booth, apparently, a teenage girl sat doing homework. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at that booth, feeling like I was about to step into a memory I'd been forbidden to access. A waitress approached, middle-aged, tired eyes, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Sit anywhere you like, Han, she said. Then she looked at me more closely, and her expression changed. Oh, you're back. Haven't seen you in a couple weeks. Your usual booth's taken, but I can. You know me? I interrupted. She blinked, confused. Well, yeah, you're here all the time. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Though you missed last week. Everything okay? Tuesday and Thursday. Not just lunch breaks, then. The support group was on Tuesdays. So I was coming here on Thursdays, too. What was I doing on Thursdays? Can I ask you something? I said, aware that Marcus had come in behind me and was watching this exchange with interest. What do I do when I'm here? Do I talk to anyone? Do I seem normal? The waitress's confusion deepened. Are you feeling all right? Do you need me to call someone? Please. Just answer the question. She glanced at Marcus, then back at me. You sit in that booth. You order coffee and a tuna melt. You don't eat much of it. You write in that little notebook you bring. Sometimes you cry. Quietly, like you're trying not to let anyone see. You leave a $20 tip on a $10 bill. And then you leave.
She paused.
Honey, are you in some kind of trouble? I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up completely. I turned and walked out of the diner, back into the cold morning air, and leaned against the brick wall, trying to breathe. Marcus followed me out. You cry, he said quietly. She said you cry. Do you know why? I shook my head, but even as I did, I felt tears starting to form in my own eyes. Not because I remembered, because I didn't. Because somewhere inside me, there was a version of myself who was in so much pain that they went to a diner twice a week just to have a place to cry. And I didn't know them. I didn't know what was hurting them. I didn't know how to help them. I want to read the rest, I said. All of it. Right now. We went back to Marcus's car. I sat in the passenger seat with the dome light on, and I read. I read every page of that 43-page report. Every observation. Every photograph. Every pattern Marcus had documented. And with each page, the version of myself I thought I knew crumbled a little more. According to the report, I went to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 6 a.m. I had no memory of this, but there were photographs of me on a treadmill, wearing clothes I didn't recognize, at a gym I couldn't remember joining. Marcus noted that I always ran for exactly 37 minutes. Not 30, not 40, but 37, and that I never listened to music or looked at my phone. Just ran, staring straight ahead, with an expression he described as dissociative. I called my mother every Sunday at 3 p.m. and talked for exactly 12 minutes. I apparently had been doing this for years. The conversations followed the same script every time. How are you? I'm fine. How's work? It's fine. How's Dad? He's fine. Weather's been nice. Yes, very nice. Okay, talk to you next week. I had no idea I was doing this. My mother had never mentioned it. Or maybe she had, and I hadn't been paying attention. Or maybe I had two versions of reality, the one I was conscious of, and the one I was actually living. On Saturday mornings, I volunteered at an animal shelter in Roxbury. This fact hit me like a physical blow. I loved animals as a kid. I'd begged my parents for a dog for years. They never let me have one. And apparently, as an adult, I'd found a way to be around animals anyway. But I'd hidden it from myself.
Why?
Why would I hide something that made me happy? Except Marcus's notes suggested I wasn't happy there. Subject interacts with animals in a mechanical fashion, he wrote. Feeds them, cleans kennels, follows protocols, but shows minimal emotional engagement. On one occasion, subject sat in front of a dog's kennel for 23 minutes without moving. Dog, German Shepherd mix, kennel card identified as Max, approached the gate and attempted to interact. Subject did not respond. Eventually stood and continued with assigned tasks. I stared at the photograph of me sitting in front of that kennel. The dog, Max, was pressed against the chain-link gate, his tail mid-wag, his eyes bright and hopeful. And I was just sitting there, staring at him with an expression of such profound emptiness that it hurt to look at. What was wrong with me? What had happened to make me like this? I kept reading. The report documented my sleep patterns. Apparently, I woke up multiple times every night, usually around 2 a.m. and again around 4 a.m. Marcus couldn't observe what happened during these wakings, but he noted that my bedroom light would turn on for anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours before going off again. He hypothesized I was either dealing with insomnia or engaging in some nocturnal activity I didn't want to acknowledge in daylight. There were details about my shopping habits. I went to the grocery store every Thursday evening and bought almost the exact same items every time. But I also made quick stops at a corner store in a different neighborhood on random days, where I bought things that didn't match my usual purchases. Art supplies, including sketchbooks and charcoal pencils. Children's books. Flowers. All paid for in cash, never with my credit card. I had no memory of any of this.
None.
Marcus had followed me to a cemetery on 2 different Saturdays. Forest Hills Cemetery in Jamaica Plain. I'd walked to the same grave both times and stood there for over an hour. He'd noted the name on the headstone. Emma Catherine Cole, 1989 to 2014. Beloved daughter, sister, friend. I stared at the photograph of myself standing in front of that grave, and I felt nothing. No recognition. No memory. Just a vast, echoing absence where something important should have been. Do you know who that is? Marcus asked from the driver's seat, watching me study the image. No, I whispered. But I must. Otherwise, why would I go there? That's what I thought. So I looked into it. Emma Cole. She died 11 years ago in a car accident. She was 25. Grew up in Boston, worked as an elementary school teacher, and according to the obituary I found. He paused, pulling out his phone and scrolling to find something. She was engaged to be married. Her fiancé's name was never mentioned in the articles, but I cross-referenced the date of the accident with other records, and I found something interesting. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a scanned image of a police report from November 2014. A 2-car collision on Route 93 just outside the city. 1 fatality. Emma Catherine Cole. 1 survivor, the driver of the second vehicle. And there, in the clinical language of the police report, was a name I recognized immediately because it was my own. I was in that accident. I was the other driver. The phone slipped from my hand and landed on the floor of the car. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe,
Couldn't think.
just sat there as this information rewrote everything I thought I knew about my life. I killed someone. 11 years ago, I killed someone. A teacher. Someone who was about to get married. Someone who was 25 years old with her whole life ahead of her. And I had buried it so deep in my psyche that I completely erased it from my conscious memory. The report said it wasn't your fault, Marcus said quietly, retrieving his phone from the floor. Black ice. She lost control of her vehicle and crossed the median. You couldn't have avoided it. The police cleared you of any wrongdoing. But that doesn't mean you forgave yourself. I don't remember, I said, and my voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from very far away. I don't remember any of it. The accident, the investigation, the funeral, none of it. How is that possible? How do you forget something like that? Trauma, Marcus said simply. The mind protects itself, sometimes too well. I looked down at the report in my lap, at the photograph of me standing at Emma's grave, and suddenly everything started clicking into place. The emptiness I felt, the sense of being a stranger to myself, the support group for people in identity crisis, the late-night visits to that apartment building. Was I watching her family? Her fiancé? The ritual at the diner where I ordered food I couldn't eat and cried where I thought no one was watching. I wasn't having an identity crisis. I was having a guilt crisis. I had taken a life, even accidentally, and I couldn't live with it. So I'd created an elaborate system of forgetting. I'd buried the memory so deep that it became inaccessible, but the guilt remained. It had to go somewhere. So it manifested in these strange behaviors, these rituals, These patterns I couldn't explain. My unconscious mind was trying to atone for something my conscious mind refused to remember. "There's more," Marcus said, and something in his tone made me look up sharply. "More? The apartment building. The one you visit on Wednesday nights." I did some digging after I noticed the pattern. "The third-floor apartment you were watching."
He paused.
"It's rented to a man named David Chen. He's 41 years old, works as a software engineer, and according to social media archives I was able to access, he was Emma Cole's fiancé." The world tilted. I gripped the edges of the report to keep from falling, even though I was already sitting down. "I've been stalking him," I whispered. "Oh God, I've been stalking him." "Not stalking. Watching. There's a difference. You never approached him, never tried to contact him. You just stand there, like you're keeping vigil or something, like you're making sure he's okay." "That's not better. That's not." I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't articulate the horror of what I was learning about myself. Marcus reached over and took the report from my hands. "I think you need to stop reading for now. You're going into shock." "No," I said, snatching it back. "No, I need to know. I need to know everything. If I stop now, I'll just forget again. I'll bury it like I buried everything else. I need to know who I am. All of it. Even the parts that make me a monster." "You're not a monster," Marcus said firmly. "You're a person dealing with trauma in the only way you know how. But yes, you need to know. So keep reading. But understand that what you're about to learn, it's going to change everything." I looked down at the report. I was on page 32. 11 pages left. What could possibly be worse than what I'd already learned? I turned the page and found out. The section was titled Unscheduled Observations. Marcus explained in a brief note that these were instances where he'd followed me outside the predetermined surveillance schedule, either because he'd noticed a pattern developing or because something about my behavior had struck him as significant enough to warrant additional investigation. The first unscheduled observation was from a Friday night 3 weeks ago. According to the timestamp, it was 1:47 a.m. The photograph showed me in what looked like an alley downtown, talking to a homeless man. I was crouched down to his level, and I was handing him something, money probably, though the image wasn't clear enough to tell for certain. But what struck me about the photograph was my face. The expression there was different from any other image in the report. I looked engaged, present, like I was actually seeing this person, not just going through the motions. Marcus's note said, "Subject appeared to have been searching for this particular individual. Drove to 3 different locations in downtown Boston before finding him. Conversation lasted approximately 20 minutes. Exchange was not transactional. Subject seemed to be checking on individuals' well-being rather than simply offering assistance. Before leaving, subject provided what appeared to be a bag of food and a blanket from vehicle. Subject repeated this pattern on 2 additional Friday nights during surveillance period. I had no memory of this, but looking at that photograph, I felt something shift inside me. This didn't feel like guilt or compulsion or trauma response. This felt like choice. Like something I was doing because I wanted to, not because I was trying to atone or forget or hide. The next unscheduled observation was even stranger. It was from a Thursday afternoon, and the location was listed as Private Residence, Dorchester. The photograph showed me standing on the porch of a small house with faded blue siding, talking to an elderly black woman. She was smiling at me, and I was smiling back, and we both looked so normal, so comfortable with each other. Subject visits this location approximately twice per month, Marcus wrote. Stays for 1 to 2 hours. Activities inside residence unknown, but relationship appears to be established and positive. Possible family connection, though records checked does not indicate any relation. I stared at the photograph, trying to pull up any memory of this woman, this house, this connection. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But the way I was standing there, the ease in my posture, suggested this wasn't a new relationship. I knew her. We had history. There were more unscheduled observations. a community center in Mattapan where I apparently taught a creative writing class on Tuesday evenings, the same day as the support group, which meant I was going to both. A bookstore in Brookline where I spent hours browsing but rarely bought anything. A park bench near the Charles River where I sat alone and watched the water, sometimes for over an hour. Each observation revealed another piece of a life I didn't consciously remember living. And the more I read, the more I realized something profound. I wasn't just one person. I was multiple people. There was the person I presented at work, competent, reliable, unremarkable. There was the person I thought I was, empty, lost, searching for meaning. And then there were all these other versions. The person who visited graves and stood outside apartments and cried in diners. The person who helped homeless men and visited elderly women and taught writing classes. The person who ran for exactly 37 minutes and bought flowers with cash and stared at dogs in kennels. Which one was real? Which one was me? The final pages of the report contained Marcus's analysis and conclusions. I almost didn't want to read it. I'd learned so much already, discovered so many hidden aspects of myself, that I wasn't sure I could handle an outside perspective on what it all meant. But I forced myself to continue. Subject exhibits clear signs of dissociative behavior, Marcus wrote. The compartmentalization of activities, the selective amnesia regarding significant life events, and the ritualistic nature of many observed behaviors suggest a person who has fragmented their identity as a coping mechanism. This is not uncommon in individuals dealing with severe trauma, particularly trauma involving guilt or moral injury. Moral injury. The term stuck in my mind. That's what this was. I hadn't just been in an accident. I had taken a life, however unintentionally, and it had broken something fundamental inside me. And I'd spent 11 years trying to piece myself back together without ever acknowledging what was broken. However, Marcus continued, subject also demonstrates capacity for genuine connection and altruistic behavior. The relationships and activities documented in this report suggest that beneath the dissociation and avoidance, there exists a person seeking to make amends, to contribute positively to the world, to matter in ways that counterbalance the harm they believe they've caused. This person is not lost. They are buried. I read that last sentence 3 times. They are buried, not lost. Buried, which meant they could be found. Which meant I could be found. I looked up from the report to find Marcus watching me with an expression that might have been sympathy or might have been professional curiosity. It was hard to tell. What do I do now? I asked. That's not my job to answer, he said. I was hired to observe and document. What you do with this information is up to you. But you must have an opinion. You've seen people in crisis before. What do they usually do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, most people do nothing. They read the report, they feel shocked or ashamed or confused, and then they file it away and go back to their lives. Because facing the truth is harder than living with comfortable lies. But some people... He paused. Some people use it as a starting point, as a map to finding their way back to themselves. A map. That's what this report was. Not a judgment or a condemnation, but a map of territory I'd been too afraid to explore. All these fragments of myself, scattered across the city, hidden in routines and rituals I didn't consciously remember. They were breadcrumbs leading back to something. To someone.
To me.
I looked out the car window at the streets of Boston, at the people walking past living their normal lives, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to file this report away. I wasn't going to pretend I didn't know what I knew now. I was going to follow the map. I was going to find every piece of myself I'd hidden away, and I was going to look at them. Really look at them, no matter how much it hurt. Starting with the hardest one. I need you to drive me somewhere, I told Marcus. Where? 447 Elm Street. The apartment building. I need to talk to David Chun. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Are you sure that's a good idea? You've been watching him for months without his knowledge. He might react badly too. I'm sure, I interrupted. I killed the woman he was going to marry. I've been standing outside his apartment like a ghost for who knows how long. The least I can do is tell him the truth. All of it. Even if he hates me. Especially if he hates me. Marcus studied me for a moment, then nodded and started the car. We drove to Somerville in silence. I spent the drive rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain myself, but every version sounded inadequate. How do you tell someone that you've been unconsciously stalking them as part of an elaborate trauma response you didn't even know you were having? How do you apologize for something you don't remember doing? The apartment building looked different in daylight. Older, more worn than it had appeared in the photographs. We parked across the street, and I stared up at the third-floor window. No light on now. It was almost noon. He was probably at work. Do you want me to wait? Marcus asked.
No.
I need to do this alone.
But
I pulled out my wallet and counted out the remaining payment I owed him. Thank you. For the report. For the truth. Even though it was hard to read. He took the money, but didn't put it away. Just held it, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Finally, he said, "Can I give you some advice?"
sure.
The person you're about to meet, David Chen, he's been living with his own grief for 11 years. Whatever you're expecting from this conversation, whatever closure you're hoping for, you might not get it. He might not want to forgive you. He might not want to know you. He might just want you to leave him alone. I know. And if that happens, if he rejects your attempt at reconciliation, it doesn't mean you're beyond redemption. It just means his healing and your healing are on different paths. Do you understand? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Marcus handed me his business card. If you need anything else, or if you just need someone who knows the whole story, call me. I took the card and got out of the car, watched him drive away, and then I turned and walked to the door of 447 Elm Street. There was no directory, no way to buzz individual apartments. The front door was unlocked, a security risk I filed away automatically, which told me some part of my old self was still functioning. I climbed the stairs to the third floor, my footsteps echoing in the stairwell, and found apartment 3C. I stood outside the door for a full 5 minutes, my hand raised to knock, unable to make myself do it. What was I hoping for? Forgiveness? Understanding? Or was I just trying to transfer my guilt onto him? Make it his problem to deal with? Before I could answer that question, the door opened. A man stood there, early 40s, Asian, wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down shirt. He had bags under his eyes and the kind of exhaustion that goes bone deep. He looked at me with mild confusion. "Can I help you?" he asked. And I realized he didn't recognize me. Why would he? We'd never actually met. He had no idea I'd been standing outside his apartment every Wednesday night for months. Had no idea I was the person who'd been in the other car that night 11 years ago. I opened my mouth to introduce myself, to explain, to apologize. But what came out was, "I'm sorry." Just that. 2 words. And they didn't feel like enough. They would never be enough. David Chen's expression shifted from confusion to wariness. "Do I know you?"
No. Yes.
Sort of. I was fumbling, losing my nerve. "My name is... It doesn't matter. I just needed to tell you I'm sorry. For Emma. For what happened. For..." Recognition dawned in his eyes. Not pleasant recognition. The kind that comes with pain resurfacing. "You," he said quietly. "You're the other driver." I nodded, unable to speak. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "How did you find me?" I couldn't tell him about the surveillance, about the months of Wednesday nights. I've been trying to find the courage to contact you for a long time. I needed to apologize. To tell you that not a day goes by that I don't think about what happened. That I don't wish I could change it. The police said it wasn't your fault, David said. His voice was flat, emotionless. Black ice. No one could have prevented it. That doesn't matter. She's still gone. And I'm still here. Something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe. Or just exhaustion. What do you want from me? Forgiveness? Absolution? Because I can't give you that. I've spent 11 years trying to forgive the universe for taking her. I don't have anything left to give to you. I don't want anything, I said, and I meant it. I just needed you to know that she mattered, that her death mattered, that I haven't forgotten, that I won't forget. David leaned against the doorframe, suddenly looking even more tired. She would have been 36 next month. We were going to have kids. She wanted 3. She had names picked out and everything. He laughed, a bitter sound. I still can't walk past a school without wondering what they would have looked like. I'm so sorry, I said again, because what else was there to say? Yeah, he said. Me too. He started to close the door, then paused. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you have people? Family? Friends? People who make sure you're okay? The question surprised me. I don't know anymore.
I thought I did.
But I'm realizing I don't really know anything about my life. David nodded slowly, like this made perfect sense to him. Grief does that. Makes you a stranger to yourself. I spent 2 years after Emma died going through the motions, not really present anywhere. It felt like I was watching someone else live my life. He met my eyes. You need to find your way back. Not for me. Not for Emma. For yourself. Because carrying this kind of guilt, it'll kill you just as surely as that accident killed her. Just slower. And then he closed the door. I stood in that hallway for a long time, staring at the closed door, feeling something shift inside me. He was right. I had been letting the guilt kill me. Slowly. Invisibly. By fragmenting myself into so many pieces that none of them could fully exist. By hiding from my own life. But I didn't have to keep doing that. I could choose differently. I could choose to find all those buried pieces and put them back together. Not into the person I was before that person was gone, but into someone new. Someone who acknowledged the past but wasn't trapped in it. Someone who could live with the weight of what they'd done and still find reasons to keep living. I walked back down the stairs and out into the afternoon sunlight. I pulled out my phone and looked at the time. 2:15. If I hurried, I could make it to St. Michael's Church by 2:30. The support group. I was going to go to the support group. Not as someone hiding from themselves, but as someone ready to remember, ready to speak the truth out loud, ready to start piecing together all the fragments of who I'd become. I made it to St. Michael's Church with 5 minutes to spare. The side door was unlocked, just like it apparently always was on Tuesday afternoons. I pulled it open and stood at the top of the stairs leading down to the basement, listening to the murmur of voices below. My heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my throat. This was different from all the other times I'd come here, times I couldn't remember. This time, I was fully present, fully aware, fully terrified. I descended the stairs slowly, each step feeling like a small act of courage. At the bottom, I pushed open another door and found myself in a large basement room with fluorescent lights and that institutional smell of old coffee and lemon cleaner that I'd remembered, or half remembered, from Marcus's report. The circle of metal folding chairs was already occupied by 11 people of varying ages, all turning to look at me as I entered. A woman in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes, smiled at me. "Welcome back," she said. "We missed you last week. Come, sit. We're just getting started." I took the empty chair, the metal cold even through my jeans, and looked around the circle. These faces. I didn't consciously remember them, but something in me recognized them. Helen, who'd lost her husband. Robert, who couldn't hold down a job. Maria, whose daughter wouldn't speak to her. And others whose names I'd forgotten I knew. For those who don't know, the silver-haired woman said, her name was Joan. I suddenly remembered. She was the facilitator. We start each session by checking in. You don't have to share if you don't want to, but we find it helps to say something, even if it's just how you're feeling today. Who wants to start? A man in his 30s with a beard spoke first. "I'm Michael, and I'm struggling. I got promoted at work last week, which should be good news, but all I feel is panic. Like if people expect more from me, they're going to see that I don't know what I'm doing, that I've been pretending this whole time." Heads nodded around the circle. Someone murmured, "Thank you for sharing." A young woman went next, then an older man, then Helen, whose voice cracked when she talked about finding her husband's favorite coffee mug in the back of a cabinet and breaking down in her kitchen for an hour. Each person shared a piece of their pain, their confusion, their search for solid ground in lives that felt increasingly unstable. And I listened, really listened, and felt my own walls beginning to crumble. When it came to my turn, Joan looked at me with those kind eyes and said, "Would you like to share today?" I opened my mouth to say no, to deflect, to hide the way I'd apparently been hiding for months. But then I thought about David Chen's words. You need to find your way back. And I thought about that 43-page report sitting in my car. And I thought about all the versions of myself scattered across the city, living half-lives in the shadows of my consciousness. My name is... I stopped. Started again. I don't know if I've ever told you my full story. I don't know if I've ever told anyone my full story, including myself. Joan nodded encouragingly. Take your time. 11 years ago, I was in a car accident. The other driver died. Her name was Emma Cole. She was 25 years old. She was a teacher. She was engaged to be married. And I killed her. The words came out flat, factual, but saying them out loud felt like pulling glass from a wound. The police said it wasn't my fault. Black ice. Unavoidable. But that doesn't change the fact that she's dead and I'm alive. And I couldn't live with that. So I just stopped. Not all at once. Not in any obvious way. But piece by piece, I dismantled myself. I buried the memory of the accident so deep I forgot it happened. And then I spent the next 11 years being a ghost. Going through motions. Following routines I didn't understand. Living a life I couldn't fully remember or participate in. I looked down at my hands, at the way they were trembling in my lap. This morning I got a report. I'd hired someone to follow me, to document my life, because I didn't recognize myself anymore. And what I found, what I learned, is that I'm not one person. I'm fragments. Pieces scattered everywhere, all trying to atone for something I wouldn't let myself remember. I visit her grave. I watch her fiancé's apartment to make sure he's okay. I help homeless people and visit strangers and teach writing classes and cry in diners. I do all these things but I'm not present for any of them. It's like I'm haunting my own life. The room was completely silent. Even the usual sounds of shifting chairs and quiet breathing seemed to have stopped. Everyone was listening with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but somehow didn't. Today I went to see him, Emma's fiancé. I told him I was sorry, and he told me something that I think I've known all along but couldn't admit, that this guilt is killing me, just slower than the accident killed her. And I have a choice. I can keep fragmenting, keep hiding, keep pretending I don't remember. Or I can choose to come back, to put the pieces together, to live with what I've done, and still find a way to be alive. I looked up, meeting Joan's eyes, then looking around the circle at all these people who were fighting their own battles with identity and meaning and existence. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be whole again. But I think maybe it starts here, with telling the truth, with remembering, with stopping running from myself. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Helen, the woman who'd lost her husband, reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Thank you for trusting us with that." Others murmured agreement. Robert said, "That took a lot of courage." Maria nodded, tears in her eyes. Joan leaned forward in her chair. "What you've described, this fragmentation, this burying of traumatic memory, it's a survival mechanism. Your mind was protecting you from something it thought you couldn't handle. But you're right that survival and living are two different things. And the work ahead of you, the work of integration, of bringing all those pieces back together, it's not going to be easy. It's going to mean feeling things you've been avoiding for 11 years.
Grief, guilt,
Anger,
fear.
all of it. I know, I said. But you don't have to do it alone, she continued. That's what this group is for. We're all working on becoming whole again. We're all carrying things we think are too heavy to bear. And we're all learning that sharing the weight makes it possible to keep moving forward. The session continued for another hour. Others shared their own stories, their own struggles, and I listened with a presence I never felt before. When it ended, several people came up to me. Helen gave me her phone number. Robert invited me to coffee. Maria just hugged me without saying anything, and somehow that said everything. I left the church at 4:30 with a lightness in my chest that felt almost like hope. Not the absence of pain. The pain was there, sharper now that I was allowing myself to feel it, but the presence of something else. Connection. Purpose. The beginning of a path forward. I got in my car and sat there for a moment, looking at the manila envelope on the passenger seat. That report. That map of my hidden life. I picked it up and flipped through it one more time, but this time I wasn't reading it with shock or horror. I was reading it with curiosity, with compassion. These were all pieces of me. Some of them were born from trauma, yes, from guilt and grief and the desperate need to atone. But others suggested someone who was still trying, still reaching out, still attempting to matter in a world that felt meaningless. I thought about the homeless man I'd apparently been checking on every Friday night. I thought about the elderly woman in Dorchester whose house I visited twice a month. I thought about the creative writing class I taught and the flowers I bought and the dog named Max I'd sat with in silence. These weren't just compulsions or rituals. They were breadcrumbs. Clues to who I could be if I stopped fragmenting and started integrating. If I stopped hiding and started remembering. If I stopped surviving and started living. I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Chen's office. When the receptionist answered, I said, "Hi, I need to schedule an emergency session with Dr. Chen. As soon as possible. I have some things I need to tell her." things I've been hiding, things I'm ready to remember now. The appointment was set for the next morning. I hung up and sat there, feeling the weight of what I'd set in motion. This was going to be hard, facing the full truth of Emma's death, of my role in it, of the 11 years I'd spent fragmenting rather than healing. It was going to hurt in ways I'd been avoiding for over a decade. But I was going to do it anyway. I started the car and began to drive. Not home. Not yet. I had other places to go first. Other pieces of myself to reclaim. First stop, Rosie's Diner. I pulled up outside at 5:15, right in the middle of the dinner rush. The place was more crowded than it had been that morning, filled with the sounds of conversation and clinking silverware and the hiss of the grill. I walked in, and the same waitress from earlier spotted me immediately. Her expression was wary. "Are you okay?" she asked, approaching cautiously. "You seemed pretty shaken up this morning." "I'm okay," I said. "Or, I'm going to be. Can I get my usual booth?" "I know it's busy, but it's free," she said, gesturing to the back corner. "I'll bring you coffee." I sat in the booth, my booth, and for the first time, I tried to remember why this place mattered. Why I'd been coming here twice a week for months. The memories didn't come all at once. They came in pieces, fragments, like light filtering through cracks in a wall. This was where I'd come after the accident. After the police had cleared me. After the funeral that I'd attended from a distance, standing at the back of the church where no one would see me. I'd driven around Boston for hours, unable to go home, unable to face the emptiness of my apartment, and I'd ended up here. A random diner. A place with no memories, no associations, no meaning. And I'd ordered coffee and a tuna melt because that's what you do in a diner.
You order something.
And I'd sat in this booth because it was in the back, away from everyone, and I'd tried to eat but couldn't. And I'd cried. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just quiet tears that wouldn't stop coming. And then I'd come back the next week. And the week after that. This place had become my designated crying spot. The one place where I allowed myself to feel the thing I wouldn't let myself feel anywhere else.
Grief.
Not for Emma. I couldn't let myself grieve for her. That felt too selfish, too presumptuous. But grief for myself. For the person I'd been before the accident. For the innocence I'd lost. For the lightness I'd never get back. The waitress brought my coffee, and I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, feeling the heat seep into my palms. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She glanced around at the busy diner, then seemed to decide she could spare a minute.
Sure.
"Do I ever seem happy when I'm here?"
Even a little bit.
She considered the question carefully. "Not happy exactly, but peaceful, maybe? Like this is the one place where you don't have to pretend, where you can just be whatever you are in that moment." She paused. "Is this about that report your friend mentioned this morning?"
Yeah.
"I'm learning things about myself.
Things I didn't know.
Or things I forgot. And I'm trying to understand why I do the things I do." She nodded slowly. "Well, for what it's worth, you're always respectful. You always leave a good tip. And you never bother anyone. Whatever you're working through, you're not doing it in a way that hurts other people. That counts for something." After she left, I sat there for a long time, sipping my coffee, letting myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. The grief, the guilt, the loneliness, the fear, all of it. I didn't cry this time.
Didn't need to.
Just sat with the emotions, acknowledging them, letting them exist without trying to push them away or bury them. When I finally left the diner an hour later, I felt exhausted but also strangely lighter. Like I'd put down a weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten I was carrying it. Next stop, Forest Hills Cemetery. The sun was starting to set as I pulled into the cemetery parking lot, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I'd been here before, twice during Marcus's surveillance and apparently many times before that. But this time, I wasn't sleepwalking through it. I was fully present. I found Emma's grave easily. Too easily. My feet knew the path even if my conscious mind had forgotten it. The headstone was simple. Emma Catherine Cole, 1989 to 2014. Beloved daughter, sister, friend. And beneath that, a quote. She taught us how to live. We're still learning. I stood there as the light faded, looking at her name, and for the first time in 11 years, I let myself really think about her. Not as an abstract victim, not as a source of guilt, but as a real person who had existed and mattered, and had dreams and fears and favorite foods, and inside jokes with friends, and 1,000 small moments that made up a life. I'm sorry I took that from you, I said out loud. My voice sounded strange in the quiet cemetery. I'm sorry you didn't get to have your wedding or your kids or your 36th birthday. I'm sorry I didn't know you well enough to miss you properly. I just missed the idea of you, the future you should have had. A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the smell of fresh-cut grass and flowers. I kept talking. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if consciousness continues, or if there's anything after death, or if I'm just talking to stone and earth. But I need to say this anyway. I've been trying to atone for what happened. I've been visiting your grave and watching your fiancé and fragmenting myself into pieces because I didn't know how else to live with what I'd done. But I think that's not what you'd want. I think if you were here, you'd tell me that my guilt isn't helping anyone, that the best way to honor your life is to actually live mine. I crouched down and touched the cool stone of her headstone. So, that's what I'm going to try to do. Not forget you. Not pretend it didn't happen. But find a way to carry this and still move forward. To be whole instead of fragmented. To be alive instead of just surviving. I stayed there until the last light faded from the sky, just sitting beside her grave, and for the first time since the accident, I felt like I wasn't alone with my guilt. Like maybe Emma, or the memory of Emma, or the universe, or whatever force governed these things, understood. And if not forgave, then at least acknowledged the weight I'd been carrying. When I finally stood to leave, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Next to Emma's headstone was a small, newer marker. I leaned closer to read it in the dim light. And beside her forever, in memory if not in body, David Chinawaits. Until we meet again. He'd bought the plot next to hers. Was planning to be buried beside her when his time came. The discovery hit me hard. This man, who I'd been watching from the shadows, who had every right to hate me, was still so devoted to Emma that he'd ensured they'd be together in death. And I'd been standing outside his apartment every Wednesday night like some sort of guilt-ridden phantom. I pulled out my phone and, before I could second-guess myself, typed out a text to the number I'd gotten from Marcus's report. I'd copied it down earlier, just in case, though I hadn't planned to use it. Mr. Chun, this is the person who came to your apartment today. I want you to know I won't be coming back to Elm Street. Not because your words didn't matter, they mattered more than you know, but because you deserve to live your life without being watched by ghosts. I hope you find peace. I'm going to try to find mine. Thank you for your honesty today. I hit send before I could change my mind, then turned off my phone and headed back to my car. Final stop, 447 Elm Street. Not to watch. To leave something behind. I stopped at a flower shop on the way, one that was just about to close. I bought a small bouquet of white lilies, Emma's favorite flower, according to her obituary, which I'd apparently read dozens of times. I drove to Somerville one last time and parked across from David's building. But I didn't get out. Didn't stand on the sidewalk watching his window. Instead, I wrote a note on a piece of paper from my glove compartment. For Emma. From someone who's trying to learn how to live again. I'm sorry I can't give you back what was taken, but I promise I won't waste what I was given. I got out, crossed the street, and left the flowers and the note on the building's front steps. Then I walked back to my car and drove away without looking back. The drive home took 45 minutes, long enough for me to think about everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. The report, the revelations, the visit to David, the support group, the diner, the cemetery, all the pieces of my hidden life brought into the light. I was exhausted, emotionally wrung out in a way I'd never experienced before. But underneath the exhaustion was something else. Something I hadn't felt in 11 years. Relief. When I got home, I didn't turn on the TV or scroll through my phone or do any of the mindless activities I usually use to fill the evening hours. Instead, I went to my closet and dug around until I found a box I didn't consciously remember storing there. Inside were art supplies, the sketchbooks and charcoal pencils Marcus had documented me buying with cash at random stores. I pulled out one of the sketchbooks and opened it. The pages were filled with drawings.
Hundreds of them.
Sketches of faces, buildings, landscapes, abstract shapes. Some were good. Others were rough, unfinished. But all of them were mine. Evidence of something I'd been doing in the fragments of time I couldn't account for. Creating. Making something from nothing. Leaving marks that proved I existed. I didn't remember drawing any of them, but looking at them now, I could feel the impulse that had driven me to create them. The need to make something meaningful. To prove that my hands could build as well as destroy. I sat on my bedroom floor surrounded by these secret artworks and cried. Not the quiet, controlled tears I'd cried at the diner all those months. These were big, body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. Tears for Emma. Tears for David. Tears for all the years I'd lost to fragmentation and forgetting. Tears for the person I'd been, and the person I'd become, and the person I was trying to be. And somewhere in the middle of that crying, I made another decision. Tomorrow, after my session with Dr. Chin, I was going to start actively reclaiming all the pieces of myself. I was going to go back to that animal shelter and actually interact with the animals instead of going through the motions. I was going to find out who that elderly woman in Dorchester was and why I'd been visiting her. I was going to show up to my creative writing class and actually be present for my students. I was going to track down that homeless man I'd been helping and have a real conversation with him, learn his name, hear his story. I was going to take all these fragments, the traumatized pieces and the coping mechanisms and the secret kindnesses and the hidden creativity, and I was going to integrate them, not back into the person I was before the accident. That person was gone, and trying to resurrect them would be pointless. But into someone new. Someone who acknowledged the past without being trapped by it. Someone who carried guilt but wasn't crushed by it. Someone who was whole.
It was going to take time. Years, probably.
And there would be setbacks and difficult days and moments when the fragmentation would feel easier than the integration. But I was going to try anyway. Because Emma Cole deserved more than a ghost haunting the city, performing rituals of atonement. She deserved to be remembered by someone who was actually alive. Someone who took the second chance they'd been given, the chance she didn't get, and used it. Not perfectly, not without pain, but used it. I fell asleep that night on my bedroom floor, surrounded by forgotten artwork, with tear tracks drying on my face and the manila envelope clutched to my chest. And for the first time in 11 years, I didn't wake up at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. I slept through the night. Deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through my window and my phone was buzzing with a text. I picked it up, expecting it to be Dr. Chen's office confirming my appointment. But it was from David Chen. Thank you for the flowers. And for the promise. Emma always said that life was meant to be lived fully, especially when it was hard. She would have wanted you to keep that promise. I hope you do. I read the message 3 times, my throat tight with emotion. Then I typed back, I will. I promise. I got up, showered, and got dressed for my appointment with Dr. Chen. Before I left, I took one more look at the manila envelope on my dresser. That report, that map of my hidden self. I picked it up, flipped through it one final time, and then I put it in a drawer. I didn't need it anymore. Not because I was done integrating all those pieces. That work was just beginning. But because I wasn't observing myself from the outside anymore. I was ready to live from the inside. As I drove to Dr. Chen's office, I thought about the title of this whole strange chapter of my life. I hired a private investigator to follow myself. The report made me question everything. The questioning wasn't over. It would probably never be over. But now the questions felt different. Not who am I, in that desperate, drowning way, but who am I becoming? With curiosity, with hope, with the understanding that identity isn't something you discover once and then you're done. It's something you build day by day, choice by choice, in the space between who you were and who you want to be. I parked outside Dr. Chen's office and sat in my car for a moment, gathering my courage. This was going to be hard, telling her everything. The accident, the fragmentation, the surveillance, all of it. But it was necessary. I grabbed my bag, got out of the car, and walked toward the building. And as I pulled open the door, I whispered to myself, to Emma, to David, to all the hidden versions of me that were finally coming home. I'm ready. I'm ready to remember. I'm ready to integrate. I'm ready to live. And for the first time in 11 years, I meant it. The door closed behind me, and I stepped into the rest of my life.